Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Bill Hartman. I'm the Trails and Open Space Planning Manager with the Montgomery County Planning Commission. I'm joined tonight by a couple of my colleagues, Ellen Miramontes and Doug Mazie, who both work in my section with me, and then our consultant, Mike Bowles, who's with Bowles, Smythe and Associates. We actually have been in front of you before to talk about this about a year and a half ago or so, but boards change and new people come into the audience and to the township staff, so we wanted to provide an update on this really great project that we've been working on for almost 2 years now. So yes, the project name is the Cross County Trail Bridge and Extension Project. I wish I had a more exciting name than that, but that's essentially what it is. I'm going to give you some context about the Cross County Trail more broadly, and then we'll zero in on this project specifically in just a sec. So this is what we call at the county our primary countywide trail network map. And it obviously includes the entirety of Montgomery County, and it includes all of our well-known existing trails, as well as trails that are proposed and that we'll be building in the years to come. But a couple of the more renowned trails within Montgomery County that I'm sure you've heard of is the Schuylkill River Trail, which runs at the bottom of the map along the Schuylkill River Trail, going from Philadelphia all the way out to Pottstown and beyond. We've got the Perkiomen Trail that leads off of the Schuylkill River Trail near Valley Forge National Park and heads up to Green Lane Park up at the northwestern part of the county. But tonight we're talking about the Cross County Trail, which is the trail that we've highlighted in blue on the eastern side of the county. The Cross County Trail right now, well, the entirety of the Cross County Trail ultimately is 20 miles in length. Right now, about 9 of those are built, so we have 11 more to go. But of those 20 miles, literally every inch of that trail is either built, in engineering right now, or will be moving into engineering in the coming month or two. So this is a super high priority project for Montgomery County and the Planning Commission, and we're working aggressively to build it out. We received in 2024 over $40 million from the federal government to help build this trail. And that money will be used for engineering as well as construction costs, and in some cases, some right-of-way acquisition. The county is contributing about $4.5 million in addition to that $40 million. So when you look at it from a ratio standpoint, for every dollar that the county is committing toward this project, the federal government is committing $10. So it's a really great leveraging opportunity for the county to get enough funding to move the entirety of this project forward. So tonight what we're talking about is the Cross County Trail Bridge and Extension Project. It's about 1.83 miles in length. This slide shows the entirety of this project's limits. The star on the left-hand side of the map is where the Cross County Trail currently ends. It runs from Conshohocken for about 3 miles. You may have seen it. It goes by IKEA and the Home Depot, Allenwood Road, and then it ultimately finds its way to Germantown Pike in Plymouth Township, where it stops. And that's where this project picks up. We'll be building a bridge to go over Germantown Pike, and again, Mike's going to go into this in more detail. The trail will then run up to Butler Pike, which is a county road. It will cross over Butler Pike, and at that point it enters Whitemarsh Township. It will run through some areas behind Butler Pike and ultimately come out onto Flourtown Road, where it will then run along Flourtown Road up to Joshua Road. And at that point, you'll take a left and it will run north on Joshua Road about, I don't know, a third of a mile or half a mile, where there will be a new traffic signal. It'll cross over Joshua Road, and that's where the Erdenheim Farms portion of the Cross County Trail will then begin and then move further north from there. Just a little bit about the project team. As I mentioned, there are several of us at the Planning Commission who are working on this project. We're also working closely with DVRPC, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. Because this is a federally funded project, we have a liaison with PennDOT who works at DVRPC. In this case, it's Joan Detal. He helps us make sure that we're staying on target with all the federal requirements that take place during engineering. And of course, we have Bowles Smythe Associates who are doing the actual engineering. Right now, we're in preliminary engineering. We anticipate that will go through the end of this year, and then we'll move into final design from there. So we have a good, strong team of people who are working on this project. And more specifically, underneath Bull Smythe, there are a number of specialty consultants who are working on the various dimensions of this project, including structural engineering. We have to do a lot of geotechnical engineering and surveying because of the sinkholes that exist in this area, so we want to make sure that we're studying that and building the bridge and the trail in areas that will support them. We have an environmental consultant, and we also have a cultural resources consultant, and these are all consultants that will look at all the different aspects of this project and make sure that we're checking all the boxes that the federal government is requiring. Specifically, from a project funding standpoint for this particular segment of trail, as I mentioned, within that $40 million, this project is consuming almost half of that money. We received $2.5 million from what's known as the Community Project Funding Program. That flowed through Madeline Dean's office as the U.S. representative for this area. We were awarded $2.5 million through that program to fund engineering and construction, but the reality is that that money will be used predominantly for engineering. The county is also contributing over $600,000 in addition to that $2.5 million for engineering. Beyond that, from a construction standpoint, there are over $20 million committed for the construction of the bridge and trail. That may sound like a lot of money for a bridge and a trail when we're talking about less than 2 miles of trail. And it is a lot of money. The reason there's so much money allocated for this particular portion of the cross-county trail is because that bridge is enormously complex. It's going to be enormously expensive. We're estimating probably in the $10 to $12 million range to get the trail over Germantown Pike. As Mike's going to explain, the utility situation in that area is immensely complex. And they're kind of having to weave a needle through a bunch of different utilities in order to get over Germantown Pike. It will then land and run, as I described, up to Joshua Road. Trails are expensive now. People used to sort of throw around like, well, a mile of trail costs $1 million. Well, those days are kind of over. Our experience is that a mile of trail, especially in heavily developed areas like we're talking about here, can cost upwards of $3 or $4 million per mile. It's essentially a road that you're building. They're 10 to 12 feet wide, and you have to go through all the same hoops that you do for a road. So it's just as expensive to build trails and acquire the right-of-way in order to do so. But the good news is that we have the funding available to make this happen, and that's true with all the other portions of the cross-county trail that we're going to be studying in the years to come. And there has been a lot of pre-work to get us to where we are today. There was a feasibility study that was done back in 2015 that took a look at some of the potential alternatives for how this segment could be routed. In 2022, we put together with Gilmore and Associates a feasibility study for the bridge itself. And then in 2024, we completed a feasibility study to pick out the precise alignment of where the trail will go once it gets over Germantown Pike. So lots of public participation to date. There will be additional public participation in the months to come to look at the engineering that we've put together to date. And that's really important to the county, as I know it's important to the township to make sure that people have an opportunity to weigh in on this and are aware of what's going on.
As Bill mentioned, the feasibility studies went into some great detail over the years from 2015 till now. And I'm just going to drill down on some of the location areas of the trail itself, which primarily follows the results of the feasibility study. As Bill mentioned, there's been a lot of stakeholder coordination, including individual property owner cooperation, including 2 or 3 or more memoranda of understanding in support of the trail, particularly on the properties where the trail will cross over. And I'll briefly highlight a few of those, including the starting point at Metroplex. So the green line represents the new alignment of the trail. As Bill mentioned, the green line as it crosses over Germantown Pike is a significant structure. It's about 600 feet long, multiple spans, and that is required. The feasibility studies demonstrated in coordination with PennDOT, as Germantown Pike is a state highway, that a grade separation is really the safest and most appropriate crossing of Germantown Pike. The blue represents the existing trail that Bill had described earlier that goes down to Conshohocken, and we'll be connecting that into there. And there's a little distance because of the need to go 17.5 feet over Germantown Pike with the minimum vertical clearance. The actual green line would have to extend back beyond the end of the blue existing and extend that portion back a little bit. So the little squiggly area at the left end of the blue that's tying into the green at the terminus is a minor relocation to have that connection to where we touch down on the western section of the bridge. You'll see a little cyan line there. As we go through this, Bill mentioned, we have to touch all the bases in terms of design, environmental, right-of-way, and utilities. Very complex area, as Bill mentioned. There's a significant maze of utilities through this area. We have a Texas Eastern gas line coming through here. Pico Gas has a major transmission line coming through. We have aerial and underground Pico facilities, as well as other telecommunication companies. And as you can see, Plymouth Creek actually crosses underneath Germantown Pike. There's a small concrete area in the Germantown Pike bituminous paved area there. PennDOT in the feasibility studies has indicated that the bridge spanning over Germantown Pike cannot be directly over that culvert because they need to get in there to do maintenance on that. So again, there are a lot of constraints in terms of where the bridge could be. And as we look at design, environmental, utilities, and right-of-way, we were looking at the bridge structure in particular for type, size, and location, which is a preliminary engineering level assessment of the bridge itself that really dictates the feasibility of that structure. Final design will get into more detailed information about the aesthetics and architectural treatments and how that will look in consultation with the stakeholders. But right now we're trying to focus on that location. So the cyan line that you see just below the green represents an alternate location or type, size, and location for that bridge. As I mentioned with design, environmental, utilities, and right-of-way, in this particular case, many of the elements of that in terms of design and cost for the structure itself and utility avoidance, they're very, very similar. The issue here is with the Metroplex site and the Livesey store that's adjacent there, there's an existing parking facility, and the issue of right-of-way and getting easements and maintaining the parking facilities for the adjacent land uses is one of the key elements in how that design of that structure will go. So we have two options that we presently are presenting at the bridge crossing of Germantown Pike. We continue east a little bit, and we do have to cross over Darby Creek aerially because, again, we are in a 100-year flood plain in that area, so we really can't increase the 100-year flood elevation with embankment being placed within that 100-year flood elevation. So that also extends the structure to that approximately 600-foot length. So as we continue east in Plymouth Township, we go through the Meeting House Business Center. Again, some challenges as we go through there, but the feasibility study did good work in identifying the proposed location for that, and that pretty much is consistent with that. As we approach Butler Pike, we would be on the west side of Butler Pike from the Meeting House Business Center in front of the Danella property. The existing roadway and curb line would remain in place along Butler Pike, and the trail would go behind the existing buffer and utilities there and encroach into the Danella property a bit, shifting their fence back to provide the width for the trail. There will be a rapid flashing beacon. The yellow star represents the mid-block crossing, so it's not a full traffic signal. It's a pedestrian crossing signal that you would implement there. And the county had acquired the property that you'll see in that cyan area there that is county-owned property that they'll add a trailhead parking area at that location. So there will be an opportunity to access the trail at Butler Pike at this trail connection at the Plymouth-Whitemarsh border. Continuing east, again, as Bill mentioned, will be off-roadway there. All the roadway portions, like Butler Pike in particular, is what's called a side path condition, and PennDOT has very specific standards for trails adjacent to roadways in a side path condition. But we're in a traditional multi-use trail once we get off the roadway, and the design criteria is a little different for that, frankly simpler, but of course that requires trail easements and environmental mitigation as you go through those properties. So again, the Germantown Pike, just quickly, this is an example of the Chester Valley Trail Bridge in Montgomery County. It's in Upper Merion Township. Montgomery County sponsored that project, so they have experience in design, construction, and maintenance of structures. As you can see, the crane installation of the superstructure is somewhat voluminous in terms of space. Germantown Pike will absolutely require a weekend closure in order to set the superstructure. There would be maintenance and protection of traffic throughout the construction of the bridge itself, but that would probably be limited to individual lane closures on adjacent roadways for the abutment construction and other off-road improvements. But when the superstructure over Germantown Pike needs to be installed, this particular project, again, as I say, Montgomery County's experience has been that they've been able to do that in one weekend closure. So that would be an element of the maintenance and protection of traffic during construction, and there will be a full-blown traffic control plan for all of the work. But again, a significant portion of the work is off-road, so Germantown Pike, Butler Pike, and Flourtown Road and Joshua Road would have traditional lane restrictions at limited times for the regular construction, and this would be the most significant maintenance protection of traffic impact. There are some security and safety features like the fencing that's on the bridge itself. We'll be working in final design with the stakeholder group to do the best we can to improve the aesthetics of the structure within the budget that we have available to us. As Bill mentioned, there's $8 to $10 million allocated for the structure. That does give us some flexibility, but it also has its limitations on signature type structures that certain stakeholders may be interested in pursuing. But within the confines of that, there are architectural treatments for form liners for the abutment and retaining wall surfaces. Railings and fences can be designed in the color of the structure itself. There's a lot of opportunity to employ architectural treatments to enhance the structure appearance. And we've noted through the feasibility study that that is obviously an important element in the area of Germantown Pike. So that's an element that will be a key component in final design. But in preliminary engineering, we're primarily focusing on the feasibility of the structure, and that is tied primarily to type, size, and location. So as we come through the wooded area, the feasibility study, as I mentioned, the trail location has honored the feasibility coordination and location almost throughout the project area. This is one exception to that. The commercial development to the left of the green line there had a parking area there, and there's a large stormwater management basin. The feasibility study showed that trail crossing to the left of that and going along the parking area of that commercial property. And we were walking it during our preliminary engineering field views, and we came across the sanitary sewer easement, and it just seemed like a superior location in terms of accessibility, constructability, and as we worked our way up towards around Wildflower and up towards the railroad right-of-way that takes us up to Flourtown Road, it seemed like the more appropriate location for a most feasible and cost-effective location. So everywhere else is pretty much as intended in the feasibility study. So as we coordinate with the property owners there, that may be perceived as a new wrinkle, and we just wanted to make sure the municipality is aware of that in the public coordination, and will be available to coordinate with those stakeholders as they come out and participate in the public involvement program. So as we approach Flourtown Road, if you could go to the next slide. Again, this is looking at Flourtown Road with Wildflower, and Woodbine is actually where we're coming out there. And we have two photo locations. You'll see the yellow circles there, 1 and 2. As we head east on Flourtown, as we approach Colonial Drive, there's a separate municipal project to install a traffic signal at Colonial Drive, and that provides an opportunity for us to cross over from the south side to the north side at Colonial Drive at a signalized intersection for a safe crossing. So as we continue west, you'll see the blue there. That represents a portion of the trail that will be constructed as part of that local township project that will install that traffic signal, and we'll be connecting to that trail section in either end. We have met with the township and their engineer several times to coordinate these independent projects to ensure that when the signal project goes in, we're not having to rip out any of those improvements to construct the trail. There might be some local connections that require some local adjustments, but the coordination, particularly for the signal locations, the signal supports, the ADA ramps have been coordinated in order to receive the future trail in the project as it's being designed. So again, we continue on the north side to the east towards Joshua Road along the highway materials property. And if you could go to the next slide. This is an enhanced photograph of the trail on the south side, just west of Woodbine Way. The goal here is, if you're familiar with Flourtown Road in this area, there's an existing shoulder there. The intent is to hold the back of the existing sidewalk to minimize and/or avoid any permanent impacts to the properties adjacent to the trail. There may be some temporary construction impacts associated with the construction of the trail. As you can see, the proximity of that fence is pretty close to the trail itself, but that would be restored as part of the construction. But The 10-foot wide trail in this area would hold the back of that existing sidewalk to minimize those permanent impacts to the adjacent properties, then have a 2-foot buffer, and then encroach into the roadway where the shoulder was to maintain the 2 lanes of traffic and take advantage of that shoulder area for the trail. Again, as we go back to the intersection of Colonial Drive and Flourtown Road, this is the intersection where the sidewalk is there. Again, this is a pretty sensitive area. It's a very tight frontage there. We don't have all those details worked out. There will probably be some sort of architectural or ornamental landscape wall like you see there, enhancing that landscaping in that area. So as that trail goes through, there's some details to work out here. But this is just in the foreground. On the east side of this crossing is where the signalized crossing of the trail will occur to get from the south side to the north side. So we'll wrap it up here with the continuation on the north side of Flourtown Road till we approach Joshua Road. We won't have to cross at the intersection. We'll continue north on the west side of Joshua Road, and unlike Butler Pike, where we'll have a rapid flashing beacon for the mid-block crossing at Butler Pike of the trail, PennDOT, through the feasibility studies, had already determined that a full traffic signal would be required at this location, given the state highway design considerations for this in terms of site distance, traffic volume, and other considerations. So as we cross over here, this would be a full traffic signal that would be implemented. And as Bill mentioned, the Erdenheim Farm section, which is a separate project, is where we'll tie in. The trailhead parking is associated with the Erdenheim's Farm project as well, and we'd have that tie-in. This is the photo looking north of the west side, and as you look at the crest of the roadway, and just between those 2 trees at the very top there, that's approximately where that signalized traffic signal would be located to connect to the Erdenheim Farms Trail. So as Bill mentioned, we're in preliminary engineering right now. A key element of the preliminary engineering completion is the environmental clearance. So evaluating natural, community, cultural, and social resources, assessing those impacts and mitigating wherever feasible is an element of that environmental clearance. The type, size, and location of the bridge is something that would have to be pretty closely determined by that time. And the design gets to a level of what's called a design field view, which is the culmination of the preliminary engineering design. So the environmental clearance and the preliminary engineering design field view is the culmination of the preliminary engineering phase that we hope to have completed by the end of this year. One of the reasons we came out this evening is we do intend to plan a virtual public meeting in May of 2026. And it's pretty much the information we're presenting this evening. And we hope to solicit the support of the township to disseminate the invitations to that virtual meeting. We also intend to have an elected officials meeting a week prior, and we're nailing down those final dates, but welcome the support and respectfully request the interest and input from the township and all the stakeholders along the project.